I'm Sita Fey, Director of External Affairs.
I'm Jamie Buck, Director of Innovation.
This is Fundamental, the podcast from NYSIF, the organization at the intersection of finance, health, business, and labor in New York. Whoop, whoop. So it is National Safety Month, and the governor had declared in 2025 June as National Worker Safety Month. So that's why we're here. We're here to talk about safety. Safety is a big part of what we do in workers' compensation. It matters across the board. Christina, welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Christina Trease brings special strategic insight to her role as the Director of Risk Control at NYSIF. Just prior to starting in 2025, Christina was the Assistant Director of Underwriting at NYSIF, where she gained valuable experience identifying and quantifying safety risks for workers' compensation policyholders. It's a position where precision and accuracy mean everything, and these skills greatly inform Christina's leadership of risk control. Christina, welcome to the pod. We're happy to have you here this afternoon.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Maybe we can start off, you can tell us a little bit about NYSIF Risk Control and the Department of NYSIF Risk Control, where you are, who you are, and what the team is doing.
We basically have about a staff of about 35 risk control consultants. And what we do is we meet one-on-one with policyholders to help identify and eliminate hazards and also help with their safety training. So basically, if you need help with your safety program, we will review your safety program, try to find what kind of gaps are in what's missing. We'll look at losses. We'll help identify lost drivers so that we can help target those lost drivers and maybe stop injuries from occurring that are currently occurring.
So, Christina, risk control, I think we're going to have to change that and remarket it. You keep people safe. You're helping employers keep people safe. What are some of the ways that you do that?
Some of the things that we do is we do safety walkthroughs. So we'll walk through job sites and employer workplaces and try to identify hazards that might cause an injury. We'll give advice. Honestly, the best thing to do is to try to eliminate the hazard, right? We'll try to figure out a way, can we just eliminate this hazard so that you don't have to worry about it anymore? You don't have to worry about personal protective equipment.
So, Christina, OSHA says that 99% of all workplace accidents are preventable. Is this true?
Definitely true. In most cases, you can eliminate a hazard. There's a pyramid of hazard control. The top of that pyramid is basically elimination. So can we just get rid of the hazard? So if it's a toxic chemical, can we not use that chemical? Or do you have to use it? And the next step would be substitution. So is there a substitute chemical that we can use that's not as dangerous? If there isn't, then you're going to move on to engineering controls. Is there anything that we can do to engineer the hazard out? So that might come into play with like noise reduction. So if you have a really noisy environment, you might want to put baffling up, right? And that, or batting up. And that way, if you put the batting up, it might reduce the noise, and then you don't have to worry about hearing protection. You've actually eliminated that hazard. If you can't do that, then there's administrative controls. So we're going to do training. We're going to try to train people on the hazards and get them prepared for them. And then the very last thing is PPE. So if we can't get rid of the hazard, we can't eliminate it, you are going to be exposed to that hazard. The last final step is you make sure that your employees have personal protective equipment to protect them.
So slips, trips, and falls are one of the number one hazards. What does the risk control team do to help eliminate that in a workplace?
We're definitely going to come in and we're going to have an eye on that. We're going to look. Do you have cords in your walkway? Do you have trip hazards? Do you have the edge of the loading dock marked so that there's a visual cue for employees so they're not going to fall off of it? We're looking at all those little things, trying to make sure that, that you're not going to have any falls and that people are aware of the hazards. If you do have a hazard you can't avoid, again, we're going to put yellow tape or we're going to paint it yellow. We're going to tell you to paint it yellow because we want to draw attention to it. But those are some of the things as far as like construction. If it was a fall, those are different types of falls, right? Those are falls from heights. So we're going to recommend fall prevention training. Have you done fall prevention training? Do you have proper harnesses? Do you inspect your harnesses? So we're going to help you with a fall prevention program. And we're going to help make sure that you're set up with that and that all of your employees are trained properly so that hopefully that you don't have a fall. Construction falls are leading cause of death in the construction industry. They're serious.
So, Christina, you talked a little bit about PPE or personal protective equipment. Maybe you can share with our audience a little bit more in detail for the non-workers' compensation, totally familiar audience members, what that looks like, what's that include? I know some examples like hard hats, et cetera. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit for us.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the industry of what would be considered personal protective equipment. Hard-toed boots or composite-toed boots, you're going to see on construction sites. You're going to see the hard hats. You're going to see the vest, the visibility vest to make sure that people can see where they are on the job site and they're not getting hit by any equipment. But hearing protection, eye protection, Like you said earlier, 99% of injuries are preventable. 99% of eye injuries are definitely preventable. I mean, there's no reason to I think 100% of eye injuries are actually preventable because we have personal protective equipment available. So whether it's safety glasses or safety goggles, like if you're dealing with chemicals, it might be goggles. You might, again, have hearing protection. There's non-cut gloves. If you're a chef, you're going to have cut-resistant gloves, and that's going to be the PPE that you're going to use. Every industry kind of has their own personal protective. If you're in healthcare, wearing a mask, that's actually part of like PPE. They're protecting themselves as well as protecting the patients, but they're wearing gloves, right? So there's all of these things, bloodborne pathogens you have to worry about. So they're going to have protective gloves on. They're going to have on scrubs, so they're not bringing anything home with them. Respirators, depending on, if you're dealing with dust or something like that could be toxic, you might have to have a respirator on. So there's a ton of personal protective equipment out there to protect people. And it's basically going to be determined by a job hazard analysis. So as an employer, you're going to look at what you're doing. You're going to do a job hazard analysis. You're going to find out what the hazards are, and then you're going to figure out what kind of personal protective equipment is necessary.
So with that job hazard analysis, does NYSIF help? Is that part of the consulting? Do we work with them or give them guidance on that at all?
We can give guidance. We can help policyholders look at what their risks are and help them determine what their hazards are, and then also help them determine, again, how to either eliminate those hazards or protect their employees from those hazards.
So you want to brag on your staff a bit. We have OSHA certified trainers. Talk to us about what our staff has to go through to be able to support our policyholders.
Yeah, they've had extensive training. Our staff has had a ton of training. They are constantly training, and they have to keep updating their training in order to maintain their designation. So we actually have quite a few certified safety professionals. In addition to being OSHA certified outreach trainers, we have people who have obtained the certification of a safety professional, which is a very difficult certification to get. It takes extensive training. Like I think it's like something like 60 hours of training that you have to go through in order, and you have to maintain that. And you also have to have a number of years of experience. So you have to have at least 4 years experience, working in safety to even actually take the class. And we also have associate safety professionals who are not yet there. So they don't have the years in yet, but they have like the 2 years that are required for that. And they're building up to get their certification for their certified safety professional. In addition to that, we have certified Code Rule 59 consultants. They're certified by the Department of Labor, and so that we can provide Code Rule 59 consultations to our policyholders.
Nobody knows what that means.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you? Okay.
Yes,
so what
please.
is the compulsory workplace safety and health program that the Department of Labor mandates? So basically, if your experience mod as a policyholder goes over 1.20,
Christina, you mentioned the experience mod. So can you give us insight into what that means for those who are not familiar?
So an experience mod basically compares similar employees at similar payroll levels and compares their losses to each other. And if you ended up at a 1, that would mean that you are statistically average for your operation and your payroll. You have the average number of losses. If you have less losses than the average, then you actually get a credit. So it would be like, say you had a 0.90. It means that you're 10% better than the other people in your industry, loss-wise. And if you say you have like a 1.2, that means like you're 20% worse. Your losses are 20% worse comparatively to other people in your industry. So with the Code Rule 59, if your experience mod goes over 1.20 and your payroll is over 800,000, the Department of Labor says you have to participate in this program. And the program reviews 12 points of your safety program. A consultant would make recommendations on those 12 points and also do a safety site survey of your operation, make recommendations of any hazards. And you absolutely have to comply with any recommendations that were made by the consultant. Otherwise, you are subject to a 5% increase of your premium, and it's 5% every year. So that keeps going up. So the first year is 5%, the second year is 10%, and it never ends, and it follows you no matter what carrier you go to because the Department of Labor is tracking that. So that is a service that we provide for at no additional cost to all of our policyholders, which is pretty valuable.
Well, it absolutely is. Otherwise, they're going out to third-party consultants to come in and do the work that we have certified professionals here to do on hand.
Exactly. And it's pricey. It can be pricey. They can set whatever price they want. There is no rule. So every consultant can charge whatever they decide to. So yes, if any of our policyholders get cited for Code Rule 59, please feel free to reach out to us as we're happy to help.
That keeps workers safe. That's what a lot of the statutory obligations here have come out of a deep-rooted history to make sure that employers are responsible for keeping their workers safe.
Right.
So some of the services, let's touch on in more detail, NYSIF risk control, consultation report. What goes into that? How does a policyholder get one? And where do they even start that process?
They can just ask. We have an email address, riskcontrol@nysif.com. There's also several links within the portal where you can actually request a consultation meeting, and we're happy to do one for anybody. And we've actually been really successful. I just recently did a little review. I took a sampling of the people that we've been working with in the consultancy model, and I found overall there was a 45% decrease in claims, which is really positive. But what they do is they look at the loss history of the policyholder. And if they don't even have any losses, we will look at that industry and we will see what types of losses typically occur. And we will make recommendations on the top loss drivers for either the policyholder or the industry. So we're going to do a very thorough review of their claims. We're going to really look at their safety program. We're going to dig it apart. We're going to see what can we do to improve this safety program. Is there any training? Is there anything that they need to beef up? Is there sections that are missing? Is there not accountability? Anything that we can make a recommendation for, and then work with the policyholder to, we'll come up with a strategic service plan, which is basically like mini steps, right, on improving their safety program. And we will meet with them regularly, assist them in any way we can, and help them become a safer workplace. Our goal is basically to reduce the frequency of those lost driver claims. I think it's pretty valuable. Like I said, we've seen some really good results for it. It's not always the best fit for all of our policyholders, right? So we've been doing that. We were doing that exclusively for about the last 4 or 5 years, just working in the consultancy model. Since I've been here, we decided that we are going to come out and kind of do like a little bit of a lighter version. And so we're just going to now start doing annual visits to basically all of our policyholders, $15,000 premiums and above. We're going to touch base with them. We're going to do a safety walkthrough. We're going to ask about their safety program and see, is there anything that we can do to help supplement their safety program, fill those gaps in any way that they think that is, necessary. So that's a new thing that we just started doing. We used to do it a few years ago. Now we're getting back into doing that. Additionally, we are just going to start doing new business calls also. So we're trying to go out and meet with our policyholders right when they sign up. So as soon as they come on board, we want to get out there and let them know these services are available to them at no additional cost. We want them to know that from the get. We don't want it to be a surprise.
Christina, I've heard you talk a little bit about the culture of safety, but what are the elements of a culture of safety that you want every employer to have? What might it look like? What might it sound like? What might you see on the job site or in the office or posted? What are the elements that go into that culture of safety?
So the safety culture really starts from the top. It really comes from leadership. You need visual buy-in from leadership. The employees need to know that safety is a priority to leadership. And once they know that, they're just so much more comfortable reporting hazards and, letting them know about if they feel something is unsafe. If they know that actually their management would appreciate that and actually reward them for the fact that they're calling these things out, it really does start from the top down. And then in addition to leadership, you need accountability. You might have a safety program, you have a written safety program, you have written safety policies, but is there any accountability? Is that part of your, annual evaluation? Are you commenting on whether or not people are working safely and they're following the safety policies and procedures? You need accountability as part of a successful plan. I think having employee buy-in, so having a safety committee, not everybody can have a safety committee. It depends on the size of their operation, but having employees involved in their safety committee gets employee buy-in. It makes them know that management cares about whether or not they're safe at work. They know that their boss wants them to come home safe, and they know that it's important to them. That helps with morale, it helps with production, and ultimately helps reduce injuries. So you definitely need that. And even to the point where some people have even empowered employees to stop work if they find that there's an unsafe condition, that in some places, every employee has the ability to stop work. I think that's a great thing. You want them to know that that's not that you're not going to get in trouble for stopping production.
That stop work is great. You know what? Jamie's probably going to start using that, but we're going to be on to that lately. Jamie's going to try to stop work order all the time when innovation gets difficult.
Just put one in. You talked a little bit about awareness. On that theme, what are some of the top workers' comp risk exposures that New York employers should be aware of?
You kind of touched on this earlier. I mean, the most risky industries are for sure like construction, healthcare, manufacturing. This is where you're going to see the most injuries. And the number one cause of injuries is in across every industry is always falls. But one thing that in addition to falls, which can be, tragic. The one thing that I always recommend for every policyholder when I was in the field and I was doing safety training was back safety and safe lifting. Back claims are, for one, usually permanent. It's very difficult to fix a back, right? And they can be the most devastating injuries that people can go through because whatever you enjoy in life, you like, in the winter to snowmobile and ski. In the summer, you like to play ball with your kids. All of those things become really difficult if you have a back injury and you're in pain all the time. Although technology has come a long way and there has been a lot of medical advancements, we're not there yet. We can't really fix a back. That's something that stays with you forever. So it's it's something that when I would do training, I would always try to tie in their home life, right? So it's like, how do you sleep? Like, are either of you stomach sleepers?
Yes. Oh man, I'm about to get a lecture.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
Yep.
Are you too?
So it's like,
I am.
Power to the belly
No.
Yeah, I know. I've heard it before. I know.
Yeah. So it's like, so that's like something that I would always talk about. It's like, oh, do you sleep on your stomach? When you sleep on your stomach, your back doesn't get to go back to its natural S curve. You don't get a chance to, your back doesn't get a chance to rest. And basically when you get up and you start your day, your back's already tired. And so you're just waiting for a back injury, basically. Your nerves and everything and your muscles don't have a chance to kind of relax and go back to that natural state. And another thing I would always bring up is like, well, those upper cabinets at home, what do you store up there? Is it heavy stuff? Are you reaching and lifting down heavy things?
Who can reach those cabinets? I'm 5'2" $2.25. I don't know
Standing on a
anything
chair,
that's up there.
right? Yeah. So, these are things that hit home. I mean, my mother herself had a back injury. My father-in-law had a terrible back injury at work, which actually ended his career. Like that was it for him. It actually had like tragic consequences from his back injury at work where, he had depression and all of this other fallout from, not being able to do the things in life that he has always been doing since, he was a construction worker. So it's like, if that's what your trade is and that's what you've been doing your whole life and all of a sudden somebody takes that away from you, it's really difficult to recover from that. So definitely hits home with me. And it's something that I think is very important. And those claims on a policyholder side are very expensive because they are difficult to treat and they last for a long time. Yeah. The treatment lasts for a very long time.
Christina, can you tell us if you had one message that you would want to give to employers or employees, a way that you would want to sum up? What would that message be?
I think the most important thing is that every New York employee goes home to their family at night in the condition that they came to work, right? And that's not only a positive for the employee, it's actually a positive for the employer because outside of the comp cost claim and your premiums, there's all these other factors that come along with, if there is a workplace injury for, you're losing production right there and then because there's an accident, you have to shut down production. Then you have to hire a new employee. You have to train that employee. There's a ton of expenses that go into that. That's just beyond that injury, beyond that day. And it's, again, bad for morale. So it's, when your employees are hurt. Yeah. My number one message is it's in everybody's best interest, right? For the employee to go home to their family safe and in the manner that they left in the morning.
So I've learned a little bit about the NYSIF Risk Control Resource Center. It's like a portal. Can you talk a little bit about that and just maybe you could expand on the programs and the services that are part of that?
So a few years ago, NYSIF invested in this portal, which is actually pretty comprehensive. It is both a safety library and a learning management system. So where this comes into play is, I was saying that we typically meet with policyholders that are 15,000 and above. For small business or for, say, if you have field employees, you have you're a trucking operation, or, you're not seeing your employees, the learning management system is a great way to provide training to you can assign training to your employees through the learning management system. It will track it for you. It will let you know if they've passed or failed, or let you know if it's completed, and it documents it for you for record keeping purposes. So there's that side of it with the learning management system. And in addition to that, there's tons of handouts. There's safety program templates. So if you don't even have a safety program and you don't know where to start, we have templates for basically any industry that you're in available for you to download that you can customize and make it fit your operation. We have handouts that you can use for toolbox talks. There's posters. There's an OSHA log. There is so much information that's available on our Risk Control Resource Center. And we don't care what your premium size is. If you request it, we will do a one-on-one with any employer and teach them how to use it, teach them how to sign up employees or, how to assign classes to employees. Like I said, it doesn't matter what your size is. We're absolutely willing to go out and help any policyholder. They just have to ask.
So, Christina, now that summer is officially here, and as of this recording, it's about 900 degrees. Extreme heat is a safety concern for many New York workers, especially after the record-breaking summers we've all experienced. Tell us a little bit about what NYSIF is doing to help protect workers as summer 2026 gets underway.
Absolutely. So NYSIF is really trying to help, especially small business. We are trying to help small business, which we define in this way of a premiums under $10,000 or 10 or fewer employees. If you qualify, you're a NYSIF policyholder, you meet the premium requirements or the 10 or fewer employers, we are going to give you up to $1,000 or 10% of your premium up to $1,000 of a credit back for any personal protective equipment that you purchase. The credit is actually to target those who would have the most exposure to extreme heat. And those industries are firefighting, roofing, electrical, wiring, and insulation work, plumbing, wallboard installation, restaurants, manufacturing, warehousing, carpentry, landscaping, and farming sector. So there's quite a few. It's pretty much anybody who is going to be exposed to extreme heat. So if you need to buy cooling tents or misters or fans, cooling vests, any of this, you go out and buy it and you submit the receipts and we're going to credit your premium back to up to $1,000, basically paying for that equipment for your employees because we want to make sure that your employees are safe in this extreme weather.
So in addition to our staff being certified and OSHA accredited, we offer something called SST, Site Safety Training. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that impacts a lot of people here in our neighborhood in New York City, where we're recording from right now.
Yes. New York City Department of Buildings has instituted a law. If a construction site is deemed necessary to have a site safety plan, you have to have site safety training in order to be on the job site. You actually have to have a site safety card. You can't get on the card. You can't get on the job site without that card. And that training can be pretty expensive. I was just looking at it the other day, and it, can range from like $350 to like $600 per employee. Again, there's no definitive cost to what people can charge, but we offer that for free, again, or no additional cost at 199 Church in our main headquarter office. So if you look at our website, we have various classes. So we actually offer quite a few classes. If you're looking for a refresher, we offer the refresher class. If we're looking for supervisor's refresher, we're offering that. If you need the 30-hour construction, which is a necessary component to getting that card, we're offering that in October. So if your company does work on these site safety specific job sites, we're able to provide your employees with that safety card that is necessary in order for you to be on that job site. I think it is like one of the best things that we've done actually in the last few years is become certified as a site safety trainer.
Fundamental features guests who bring a different wealth of experience and expertise to the podcast.
We go further by exploring the fundamental principles that motivate each person to reveal who they are.
Now let's get to the heart of the matter, the fundamentals. So we are at that fun junction of the podcast where we get to talk a little bit non-work, or maybe it inspires your work, but a little bit lighter. And we like to ask our guests about some of the fundamental principles that guide them. And maybe you can share a little bit about that from yourself.
I've been thinking about this, and I'm thinking about how great it is actually that for me that I ended up at NYSIF, because I think the fundamental principle that has guided me is, I would say, integrity. I think the thing that's most important to me is that we're always doing the right thing. And I feel so fortunate that I've been at NYSIF for my entire career, because being that we're a nonprofit, that has literally guided every decision I've ever made. So, and especially in underwriting, where we were making I was making a lot of decisions daily on, how to handle a situation. I could always look at that situation and like, what is the right thing to do? What is the fair thing to do? And that is the great thing about working at NYSIF and not having to worry about the bottom line. We're just trying to remain solvent. So as long as we keep a solvent fund, that's our focus. So I would say, integrity and accountability, those are my fundamental principles.
Excellent. Thank you.
Talk to us about who has been a mentor to you. How did they inform who you are and how you lead your team today?
So I've been super fortunate that, especially earlier in my career, I had some pretty significant mentors. So in my first position as a risk control consultant, my direct supervisor was a terrific mentor to me. From the day that I got hired, she was like, I'm going to train you to be a supervisor. And she did. She really took me under her wing. I asked a ton of questions, probably drove her crazy, but I always wanted to know more. And actually, that's kind of what led me to become an underwriter, because I was like, oh, I know this. Now I want to know this. I want to know the other half. As I changed positions and became a manager or supervisor, I again had a great manager who really challenged me, and she made me challenge myself. Every time I would be nervous about a situation or like not sure. In fact, when the assistant director of underwriting position came up, she actually wasn't working at NYSIF anymore, but we went out to dinner, and I was kind of hesitant on whether or not I was going to go for that job. And she talked me into it. She basically said, you can do this. I think having that type of leadership to challenge you to challenge yourself has basically got me to where I am today. I will forever be grateful to that. She always told me, like, never say no. She was telling me, like, never say no, never say. That's why I'm here right now.
You couldn't shake us.
Because I can't say no, right? Yeah, exactly.
That's excellent. This has been a lot of fun. We appreciate you sharing some of the more personal side, but the wealth of information you shared in terms of what's happening on the safety and the risk. I mean, there's so much here to it. Hopefully, we can continue to, through this podcast, get the messaging out on all the things that are available to New York State employers from a NYSIF perspective. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yeah. Let us help you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Fundamental, the podcast from NYSIF.